am really pleased to be joined by a wonderfully esteemed panel of colleagues that we've gotten to know each other as we prepared for this panel. I did not know any of them before starting this, so I think it's a real testament to the power of this sort of event for bringing people together and the potential for future awesome collaborations that are already in the works between our organizations just by virtue of putting this panel together for you. So again, I'm very proud to be moderating this panel as someone who's worked in community events for more than a decade. I know the power of those events to bring people together, to innovate and spur creativity in the community, and so many wonderful things happen as a result of these activities. So I'm going to introduce them, but I'll let them give you their bios, and then they're each going to have about 5 to 10 minutes to go through their background and some of their experience, after which we'll get into a panel discussion and we'll have an opportunity to take your questions. Sound good? Okay, so I'm going to start with Peter Mello of Waterfire, and he's going to tell you about what they do.
Thank you. Who is familiar with Waterfire? Has anybody attended Waterfire? Okay. Has anybody ever volunteered for Waterfire? Okay, there's an opportunity. And does anybody have no idea whatsoever what Waterfire is? Okay, don't be shy. Okay. I have some slides here. So I'm going to stand up actually, that's okay. So this is Waterfire. This is the basin where the lighting ceremony takes place about 15 minutes after sunset. Waterfire is an artwork by Barnaby Evans, our artist. He is a Brown graduate. He was a science major, but he was an artist. And he initially designed it to do in Berlin, Germany, but was approached by the First Night Committee of Providence in 1994-95 for New Year's Eve to put it on there, and that was our first lighting of Waterfire, which will be 25 years this year, so it's a big year for us as an organization. 2 years later, he did it for a sculpture conference called Convergence, and he did it for a series of nights, and each night it got more and more popular, and more and more people came down to see it and experience it. And as a result of that, some people in the community approached him and said, "You should start a nonprofit organization, do this on a regular basis." He said, "Nobody's going to like this. It's not, it's going to die. Nobody's going to be interested in something." Well, 25 years later, and over 15 million people have come to see it. Each year, we have about 1 million people. On any given night, anywhere from 30,000 to 100,000 people will come. And when I say at night, we light slightly after sunset, and we go till midnight until this time of year, because it starts so early. We have to light earlier, so we close down a little later. We transform the city. We wire the city, we light the city, we do everything to give you this magical experience of coming to Providence that transforms you and brings you to someplace else. We start that at 5:30 in the morning, and we finish up about 3 a.m. the following morning. And some days with very difficult events, no breaks whatsoever. I like this picture because this was 2014. And in 2014, we were part of a cultural bond. It was question 5 in Rhode Island. And we were one of 9 organizations that had this idea that we presented to the governor, and he bought it. And every day when I go to work, I pinch myself because it provided $35 million to 9 cultural organizations. And we got about $3.5 million to build Waterfire Art Center, which I'll show you in a second. So this is the way the lighting ceremony takes place. If you're familiar with Providence, oh, by the way, so there's a projection. That's why I like this picture. The projection of vote yes on question 5, which was right before the election, the Waterfire, right before the election, the end of October. We projected on that building, which is called Superman Building in Providence. And throughout the installation, we had other projections on buildings and things to just get the voters. And by the way, the bond passed over 60%. So the lighting ceremony takes place in here. This is just to the end, that edge of the screen. Your right edge of the screen is the Providence Place Mall. Waterfire is a very community-focused event. This is the basin again, and this is a ring of fire. We do these rings of fire for lots of different events. Each Waterfire has a different kind of theme or focus area, and I believe this one is probably one that we did with Dr. Lynn Taylor. She's a Rhode Island Foundation Fellow, and her fellowship is a C is for Cure, and her fellowship is Rhode Island defeats Hep C. She's trying to eradicate hepatitis C from the state of Rhode Island. We partnered with her because we said we have this big platform, we engage people in a different way, we use art to get a message out to people in a different way. And so for 5 years we partnered with her to do this. This is probably the largest gathering of hepatitis C professionals and people who've had hepatitis C in the world. And we actually, as a result of the partnership, her project got on the cover of the Rhode Island Journal, picture of Wildfire. This gives you a sense of the crowds. One of our performers on the bow of the boat. So we do have performers who we pay at Wildfire. We believe in paying our artists. So he's an independent performer, the fire spinner. And then everybody else on the boat is that boat, and everybody else throughout the whole installation volunteers. That's why I asked earlier if you volunteer. It's a great experience. I highly encourage you to come do it. It's an amazing, kind of bucket list type of thing. Everybody on that wood boat, that boat there feeds those fires. And another performance is Michael Grando. He's Perot. He's actually, we transferred to it's very, Wildfire can be very theatrical. So to start the thing, we have a thing called First Light, which is transferring the light from the fire from shore to the actually art installation. So in this night, we chose to do First Light with him. And what you see in the bow of his boat, though, are carnations. And Perot is always in search of his perfect suitor, perfect young lady. So he goes along the edge with those carnations, and each of them has a romantic saying on it. And Wildfire stretches throughout the whole course of the city, about half a mile through the city, downtown Providence, from Providence Place Mall all the way to where Hemingway's is, if you know Providence, restaurant or what's the other Italian. Anyway, all this third mile through the city. This is so these buildings you see, which is interesting. None of these existed when Wildfire started. The Providence Place Mall didn't exist. So when Wildfire started, there was a beautiful downtown park that was kind of Providence's version of Big Dig. In the 70s or 80s, there was a major project that basically took the railroad lines and put them underground, and also uncovered the river, which at the turn of the century, urban planning said you should cover rivers. And so the river was covered. In the 70s, a group of forward-thinking community leaders uncovered the river, and then they built a park. It was all public highway funds. They built this park, but nobody used it, and that's what Barn became, and it's an activated park with art. So we engage people in all kinds of different ways. This is a luminaria that stretches throughout the installation. So this is also a fundraising mechanism for us. You can, for a donation, you can light a luminaria and put a memorial. These cards here are like, they're messages to loved ones you've lost. In other respects, I'll show you the next picture. We do the same type of thing in a thing called Starfield, and invariably every Wildfire has a wedding proposal. Yeah. But so not only are you supporting Wildfire, you're adding light to the night, you make it more beautiful. This is the Starfield, one of my favorite parts of the installation itself. You can see the luminaria around. This is where wedding proposals take place quite often. And you see another fundraising mechanism for us, adding light to the night. The stars in the trees, you can write a wish on a star for donation, and you attach it, and then you hang your star in the tree. So again, we're not just asking you for donations, because we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and it's really expensive to throw a party for 100,000 people for free. This is admission-free, Wildfire is free. So we have 85 braziers of the floating bonfires. These 12 are on bridge abutments that were uncovered when the river was uncovered. These are by Memorial Park, but all the other ones are floating. And it's a very, very labor-intensive process to, we got to take all the stuff out of the river every year. 80-some braziers we have to replace and renew them. And so the infrastructure for the event itself is really challenging to make. We have a staff of 22. On any given night, especially on a large Wildfire, we'll have up to 700 volunteers. And that's why I'm always recruiting. So as a result of that bond, that picture I showed you earlier, question 5, we bought this building. We actually bought it before the bond. And that's what gave us the real incentive to make sure that bond passed. This is the Old neighborhood of Providence, a very underserved neighborhood. It was a building part of a U.S. rubber factory that was built in 1932 as a storage facility and was abandoned for about a decade. This is what it looks like now. It's a $14 million project. We raised money through a lot of tax credits, historic tax credits, both state and federal, environmental tax credits. The cultural bond contributed to it in some land. And EPA ground seal cleanup was a ground seal site. This is what the inside looked like. And this is what it looks like today. And this is what it looked like last night, although this was last year's picture. Last night we had our Andy Gala called the Fireball. Last night we had, it was incredible. Last night we had, it was about 500 people attend, but we had half a dozen aerialists. Actually, it's probably more than that. And so the answer is, the ceiling's higher than this. It's a pretty spectacular event. And it's an art center, so we show art. I don't know if anybody heard of the Rosa Parks house. Okay, this is the Rosa Parks house. An artist named Ryan Mendoza. Actually, it's a long story, but Rosa Parks' niece. She grew up in a house in Detroit, and the Rosa Parks, it was the first place Rosa Parks came to when she fled the violence of Alabama. It was a place of refuge. It was her brother's house, and she moved into this house for just a short period of time. Her niece, the house was on the demolition list. There's 80,000 houses in Detroit on the demolition list. Her niece didn't want it to be demolished. Her niece bought it for $500 and then gave it to the artist Ryan Mendoza, who had done some house projects previously. And he disassembled it and brought it to Berlin, Germany. He's American, but he lives in Berlin. And he reassembled it in Berlin. It became a phenomenon in Berlin. And U.S. Foundation read about it. It was, CNN was everywhere. And they didn't want, they thought it should be back in America. So, working with Brown initially, we have one of the few venues that can actually build a house inside. And so, the shipment came, 2 containers came over rather, and the artist and his team and some of our team reassembled the house. It was in our space for 2 months. Oh. So this is it was going to watch this for 1 minute, but it's about 10 minutes of watercraft, 15 minutes. Down to the right in the corner there is Festival Ballet on the stage. You can see the dancers there. And now you're going to see coming down that pathway to the right in a second, you'll see torch procession. This gives you an idea of the scale and scope of waterfire. The torches are now being passed to the dancers. So you'll see some dancers dancing with the torches. And now we'll start the ring of fire that you saw. And the boats are coming in to light the braziers. And in a second you're going to see another boat come through and drop these orbs. These are dream orbs. And then you see these kayaks that have illuminated fish coming out into the circle. So
I have to go next year.
It's one of the more complex lighting ceremonies, but it's pretty well planned. Oh, this is actually. And in the Waterfire Arts Center, we host the Fringe Festival, the Providence Fringe Festival. We've done the last 2 years. We're already excited about next year. It's our Arts Festival, much like the Edinburgh Fringe. And so we do it there. One of the reasons why we were able to get this building, we were known internationally around the world as really pioneers in this concept of creative placemaking. And even the white paper that the NEA did were featured in there pretty prominently. But we were placemakers without our own place. We were invisible to find until we had the opportunity to buy and rehabilitate the Waterfire Arts Center. So it was part of our strategic plan. It was pretty critical for us. It's really difficult to throw an event or organize an event at the scale we do without a continuous visible presence as a 501c3 to raise money. So the Waterfire Arts Center gives us that continuous visible presence. It's also a really effective social enterprise platform for us. It's probably the hottest event venue in the state of Rhode Island right now. We just have all kinds of interest for galas, weddings, all kinds of events. We have outdoor living show, we have a fine furnishing show. So it's contributing about $250,000 a year in our first year to a revenue stream that we didn't have before. So it was a pretty pain point for us. So that's our story.
Now we have Robin Lapidus with the Provincetown Business Guild.
I too am recruiting volunteers. And I never really, okay, so is this a good, okay. But I never really thought about asking at an event such as this. So this is a learning experience for all of us. And I am the executive director of the Provincetown Business Guild. We're a 40-year-old this year, LGBTQ business membership-based organization whose sole mission is tourism to Provincetown. However, we're membership-based. So everything we do is in the service of getting more people to come, either from this part of the Cape or from any part of the world to Buchanan. And before that, I was the executive director of the Central Square Business Association in Cambridge, which has MIT and the Middle East nightclub as our institutional partners. And before that, I was at the Harvard Square Business Association. And I never, in my wildest dreams, ever thought that's what I would do for a career. But it's been really exciting and really challenging for many of the same reasons that Peter spoke of. I am currently a one-person office doing events for 100,000 people. And so let's dig in here. So that is our newish logo, but we were established in 1978. This is a quote I really like. This has always been a motto of mine: attempt the impossible in order to improve your work. And that's our Betty Davis. And I think that in event planning, especially large events for the public, in the public space, you really are attempting the impossible, because it's not, it's going against the expectations of, traffic and cars and street lights and noise and everything else, and you're just kind of putting something in that place that isn't what people are expecting. So you really do have to do a lot of blue sky. So my tips or things that I've learned, I thought back and I thought I've also been incredibly lucky because of the places I've worked in, people have called and offered me really weird stuff, like the world's longest sofa, and also a lot of $18 plastic chairs. So the world's longest sofa was really 213 feet. It weighed 2.17 tons, and it was comprised of 68 legs, and it was beautifully designed by a fabulous Danish designer for boat concept, and it made its first appearance in the United States. It had been in Europe in 2008. And they called and they said, would you like the world's longest sofa to come to Harvard Square? And I was like, well, how big is it really? And they were like, it's really, really big. And I have a rolling ruler, so me and a couple of people went out on the street and we rolled down Church Street, which is where the movie theater has always been in Harvard Square. And we were like, yeah, this could kind of fit here if the street's closed. And and then I have to call like the Department of Public Works and the police chief and fire and say, what do you think? Can we do this? And we did it. And the lesson is, this is what it looked like. That's the front and the back, sort of. The street was closed. It was a street festival. And what happened was, from the minute it was assembled, and really, it really was just a bunch of couches kind of shoved together, but making one very long sofa. But the minute it was there, everyone sat down. And they talked to the person next to them, and they kind of got comfortable like they were in somebody's living room. And as soon as somebody got up, another person sat down, they ate on the sofa. That kind of upset me. But they really made it a totally different environment for the day. This is the lesson of $18 plastic chairs, because the sofa, it's not portable. But these chairs that anybody can buy at the hardware store, every hardware store has them, and they do different colors every year. But they're $18, they're plastic, they stack. I can carry 10 without any help. You can hose them down, which is necessary after you're serving ice cream and other things. And no matter where you put them, the same thing happened. People just sat down. And for the kind of events, this is Central Square. An outdoor movie, this is the Cambridge Jazz Festival. People just, made a whole new social reality over having a chair. So that is a tip. I really feel like creating places where people can sit can even be an event in and of itself. So the next category I think is really helpful in event planning and building community is food, because food is love and it brings people together. So in my career, I didn't create the Taste of Cambridge, but I took it over and moved it twice, which was really interesting because it needed to be retrofit into 2 different areas. And it's just, any taste of event is just a wonderful way of getting people together. And we did raise $50,000 for a local charity in one night. We had 100 restaurants. They all donated their time, their food, their staff. And one tip was we gave all the staff a badge to eat like everybody else. And they worked out that they would be able to eat all the great food that everyone else that was coming to the event would get to eat. And so they really wanted to come. And they really wanted to be to schedule time to be sure that they got to taste all the wonderful things. And in doing that, it became a much better event because everyone was maybe a little tipsy and well-fed and just having a wonderful time. So feeding people is really a good idea. But I did create the Everyone Loves Latkes, which was in December, and people stood in line for about a half an hour to get one potato pancake. And I think that's just a testament to people wanting to be communal and out and trying things. So we also did the Some Like It Hot chili cook-off. Also, that was in January, so there were times where I hired a musician and the musician couldn't play their instrument because it was too cold, but people still ate chili. I also started the Festival of Dumplings, which was probably my favorite event, and the concept was all dumplings were welcome. So if it was a Jewish dumpling, that was awesome, an Asian dumpling, a Middle Eastern dumpling. Everybody has some food that's, something in a outer filling, and we charged $1. So what happened was, this is the Dumpling Festival. That's Joyce Chen, who is a food pioneer, and you should have learned about her because she was really special. But, we put it on Facebook, 2,700 people said they were coming, 35,000 people said they were interested. Everyone in town said, you were crazy, and literally about 20,000 people showed up. And the restaurants realized that they had to make more dumplings, so it was pretty crazy. It's a fabulous event. But again, the bar of admission is $1. You know, there were people who didn't have a lot of money but could buy and participate. The restaurants did it in front of their door using their own kitchens, so it wasn't like moving everybody like the Taste of Cambridge to one location, which is hard for businesses. And that's a lot of dumplings. My next lesson is it's never too late to celebrate your first or give new meaning to your 40th. So on the slide that says you never forget your first, Provincetown, which is known as being an LGBTQ-friendly destination, did not have a pride. And when we announced we were going to have a pride, people were like, well, why would you do that? Everyone knows that you're a LGBTQ destination. You know, do we really need a pride? And we said, you know, that's kind of like us talking to ourselves, because everybody in the world does not know. In fact, Peter, the big myth I have to dispel is that we're not Providence town, and that we're not in Rhode Island. We're in Massachusetts at the tip of this Cape Cod. So, you know, not everybody knows. And there are lists of prides that are 370 places long. And we weren't on it. So that was a pretty big missed opportunity. So we had our first pride on our 40th anniversary. And then we thought to ourselves, well, you know, what have we been doing for 40 years? We've definitely been doing Carnival. And every carnival has had a poster that was designed by a local artist. And you know, Provincetown has had an arts colony for over 100 years, so we have a lot of local artists. And each poster, whether it had the monument in it or not, it sort of spoke to the ethos of the times. So we created a show of 40 years of our posters, and that was something that everybody really found interesting. So I think being able to, you know, just really take inventory of your cultural assets and then try to find some new way to market them is something that everyone should try to do. And it was extremely successful. So I Googled big light, because lights are awesome, as we know. I Googled big light rainbow, and I found some things you could buy at an iParty, and then I found this artist named Yvette Matern, who saw a rainbow at Walden Pond, and then drove everyone in her life crazy for about 10 years trying to figure out how to, in art and in a large scale, recreate a rainbow. So this is 8 military-grade lasers, and that's the library over on the left, and the Crown and Anchor and a couple other businesses, and this is on a business's rooftop. So we had it for 3 nights. I wrote to the artist and I said, oh, you're perfect for this, you know, I'm sure we could never afford you or get you to come, and she called me right away, and she said, I love Provincetown, and you know, we'll figure it out, and we did. And this is how nice it makes our parking lot look, and that's how beautiful it is. And we just had thousands and thousands of people come and take pictures, and it just went very viral. We do light up our town hall with gobos, and we do a lot in the lighting area. Anyway, this is a lesson about time. I really believe you should plan far, far in advance, but I also have to say there have been times where the right idea, with the right gusto, you should just get it done and get it out there, and we did. So for Pride, we sent press releases on May 15th. And we checked, the event was June 1st, and we had the global rainbow, which was a big light and attracted a lot of attention. But by June 15th, our total impressions were over 48 million, and that is unpaid. That's earned media. So, meaning we didn't buy ads, we didn't buy anything. We just bought, we did buy the time of a PR person to help us write a great press release, and we sent it to the right people. And what happened was, for the people who never had a pride, we were called the San Francisco of the East Coast is finally about to celebrate Pride. Provincetown to host its first Pride ever, and yes, you read that right. The big heart of America's smallest Pride festivals. The Cape Cod Times wrote about us, which was great. We got press for the Global Rainbow in some more art-like venues like WVUR. And we had 95 photos of the first ever Pride in the Advocate. And that international Pride calendar for 2018 that we were never on before we were finally there. And we asked our businesses about economic impact because we are a seasonal community where we are not a drive-through location. You have to want to come to Provincetown, and you might want to have to stay overnight and know where you're parking or how you're getting there. So the economic impact was pretty substantial. We had 34% of our businesses said they saw an increase year after year. 47% saw that if they promoted the event with us, they got a bigger increase. And our ferry company, which is essential to us, added 3 ferries that were sold out that they hadn't ever used the year before. So I think it was a really simple survey. We use free tools for everything, SurveyMonkey. And I think it's really great to survey your businesses, even if it's only 5 people, to just tell you, did this work? How did it work? Okay, so anyway, my last slide says yes, but it's actually like yes. And it's backwards, and that is what Provincetown looks like when the streets are full of people. And I think, you kind of have to be a little bit crazy to do these kind of things. I'm sure there were times where people thought everyone on the stage, and probably maybe everyone in this room, is just a little crazy for trying to create something that, that really pushes the limits of what's possible. But I think that when you do, it's really worth doing. And certainly money and financing and volunteers and people power is really important. And I'm sure we'll talk about that soon. So thank you.
Thank you, Robin. We're now going to turn it over to Jane Walsh to tell you a little bit about Hyannis Open Streets and her journey. We'll take about 5 to 10 minutes on Jane, and then so we have time for questions and panel discussion. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. These guys are tough acts to follow. Really impressive. Lucky to have you here. So I'm Jane Walsh, founder of Hyannis Open Streets, and I'm also the owner of Redfish Bluefish, which is a little gift shop on Main Street I opened in 1993. I'm also on the board of the Hyannis Civic Association. I grew up in Centerville, but I've spent most of my adult life in Hyannis. So Hyannis Open Streets, has anybody in here been to Hyannis Open Streets? Oh, good, yay. So it's an event that happens 4 times a year in the shoulder season, twice in the spring and twice in the fall. We've got one coming up this Sunday, which we're competing with the Patriots. And hopefully we'll get a good turnout because we're encouraging costumes, and it's that time of year. People like to get mileage out of their costumes. So Hyannis Open Streets is based on an international model called Hyannis Open Streets, called the Open Streets, actually. It's followed by hundreds of towns and cities all in the world. And the idea is to open the streets or sections of streets to walkers, cyclists, just people, and close it to motorized traffic. And I came across this model as I was doing research trying to convince Elizabeth Worthbane, who's the director of the Hyannis Main Street Business Improvement District. She's kind of our liaison for all of the businesses on Main Street and a little bit beyond Main Street. And she said, this is a great idea, but it's a huge, huge project, and it's way too much for me in my little office. But if you reach out to some other business leaders, maybe we can get something going. So, lucky for me, I found this model on the internet, Google, and helped me out with that. And it was just so full of resources and data from other cities and towns. So I had that in my back pocket when I went to these other people, like the Civic Association, which I'm on the board of. They usually don't get involved in this type of thing. They're more of a political group. But they were actually happy to jump on board. And the Hyannis Chamber actually jumped on board as well. So we ended up doing our first Hyannis Open Streets in September of 2016. And it was the previous winter where I was pushing and begging and nudging people to get on board with this idea. So it really came together quite quickly. I started it because I thought the community was in need of something fun to bring everyone together. It was just before the 2016 election, so there was a lot of political divisiveness happening. And there was a lot going on in Hyannis. We're kind of the city of Cape Cod. We take care of people who need help, and a lot of people see that in a negative light. So I thought, you know, I love Hyannis. I love the diversity. I love the vibrancy. I love the just the fun. It's an active, fun place. It's not quite as fun as Provincetown, but we try. And I wanted to share that with people in the community, and I thought this would be a good, free, fun, safe way to bring people in the community to Hyannis and sort of see what I see when I live in Hyannis, and so I wanted to share what I saw with the other people in the community. So bear with me because I'm not as organized as these guys over here. So I talked about that I approached different people. We started a committee of 9 people, different shop owners. Elizabeth Worthbane was on the committee. 4 people from the Hyannis Civic Association, including myself, were on the committee. The head of the Chamber of Commerce, the Hyannis Chamber at the time, was on the committee. And we just kind of made it happen. We figured out how much money we thought we were going to need. We hire all our entertainers, we hire musicians, we hire jugglers, stilt walkers. Who else have we had? We had I'm drawing a blank here, but all kinds of interesting street performers and musicians come, and we needed money to make that happen. So we kind of all put our heads together and thought, who do we have that we can ask for sponsorship? So that's how it started. And my business was a big sponsor and still is. So we all kind of had to reach out to people we knew that owned businesses that we thought would support this idea and give us a little donation, and they have. And thankfully, it's worked out really well. So the street is a half a mile section that we block off. It's from Ocean Street to C Street, so it's kind of like where Soho Arts and the old Richards Gallery is, all the way to Dunkin' Donuts. So it's quite a large space to fill with activity, and that can be troublesome, I have to say. But the idea was to bring people together and let them be the activity and let them make the event themselves just by actually showing up and talking with one another and maybe trying a yoga class or a Zumba class or a hula hoop class. Part of the people, those are the people that we hire, some of the people that we hire to teach these classes. People can jump in and jump out. But we did face some challenges being in the business district. Not everybody was on board with the idea, unfortunately. I have won some people over, but I have a few more to work on. But, you know, I think the positives outweigh the negatives, and I always have to remind myself, you can't please everybody. That is one of the hard things, though, is you really want everybody to have a good time, and you really want everybody to see it how you see it, and enjoy it, and get on board with it. And you're always going to have those few people that are just like, you're doing this again. It's tough, but like I said, you got to remember, you can't please everybody, like my mom always said. And we're having the last one in 2018 is going to be this Sunday, and I hope you all can make it. Thank you.
Great. I want to thank you all for giving a little bit of background. We felt like it'd be best if you could hear from each of them what they do and their experiences, because that alone can be such an inspiration for so many that plan events and do this sort of work. Just a show of hands, how many of you are involved in planning special events, either as a volunteer or paid staff? Great. And how many of those events are over 1,000 people? How about over 10,000 people? Okay, so the scale of some of these events was what was so impressive to me in talking with all of them. I think that alone, again, can just really show you where you can go in scaling up and where you move with your work. But we also wanted to take some time to provide you with some tips and resources and best practices and their perspectives as seasoned experts on event management. You know, some of the things that they've learned and tales of, you know, whether good or bad experiences. So I want to start with taking it back to basics. So for someone who maybe plans a small event or maybe hasn't planned an event before in their career and just has a sparkle in their eye for some wonderful thing that they want to do, what are your top tips or lessons learned, maybe one each, for the sake of time, that you would share with these guys? You can pass the mic down.
Find good help, and that's really the most important thing, is to find good help and get people on board. Do whatever you can to get people on board, get behind your idea, and really believe in it, because in my case, I was asking for people to volunteer their time. None of us get paid. Brian's Open Streets, it's all volunteer. And so convince them what a great idea it is, and then get them on board.
Well, you know, I think we're really lucky to live in Massachusetts with a Massachusetts Cultural Council that has local, I forget what the LLC stands for, but, you know, pretty much all parts of, and I think Rhode Island is pretty awesome too, but, you know, all parts of Massachusetts have a local cultural council, and they get money to seed grants. So I think that there are sources like that. And then again, coming from the business community where you can't please everyone, but you can usually find, banks are great for sponsoring events, and most of them have something on a website where you can ask them for money. And you know, so being able to articulate just a small plan on paper that you could submit through a bank portal. Eastern Bank is a lot of money to like everybody. But I think that is a great way to seed funds, but I think find your local cultural council and ask how you can get an event started. We have a Day of the Dead event that is so unusual and homegrown, and you know, that would be an event that I would never really think would find the kind of support and sponsorship that it has. But I think they looked to the local cultural councils and got some seed money, and then found the people who wanted to help further it. Be prepared. Give yourself plenty of time to be prepared and plan for it. We have a
monster Google Doc for every single event that has every minute from 5 a.m. until 3 a.m. with every single employee, every volunteer scheduled out on it, and build some redundancy in if you have important items that you can't do without your event.
Awesome, thank you. Let's stick with that theme. So, any favorite hacks for staying organized, any tips or tricks or templates that you want to share with everybody?
So I actually have a timeline that I left a few copies of over there that I use every event. And after listening to these two, I think I should expand on it and maybe move the dates back a little bit. The timeline is great, and then we meet, my committee meets every Thursday morning. We start about 2 months before the first event, and then we'll meet one more time after this last event of 2018. And somebody on the committee has volunteered to take minutes, which I find invaluable because I forget what we talk about sometimes. Even though I'm taking notes while we're talking, sometimes I'm not taking notes about what I'm talking about. So the timeline and the minutes really help me stay organized.
I really couldn't do what I do without a lot of free tools. So, we use SurveyMonkey. I usually use things for a couple years, and then I wind up paying the $34 or whatever to get more tools. But again, I don't need to be a commercial, but for SurveyMonkey or Eventbrite. But we as a one-person office, I've done events with 5,000 people and not had to deal with a single ticket or you have to scan the tickets when they're coming through the door, and you can get volunteers to do that. But even with 5,000 person events with rain dates, I've gotten maybe 20 emails from ticket buyers where there's a problem or something. So I think that Facebook is a free tool that can get you enormous event buzz. The survey tools are great, the ticket tools are great, and they have so much built-in keeping track that I could not have done these things without them, truly.
A couple things. We use an awesome piece of software, project management software called Basecamp, and we have a project for every single water fire. And the great part of that is we're all communicating in there, and all the documents are, so you can carry it on your phone. When you're out in the field, you can pull it up and you can find anything you need. There's no searching for that. And then the other thing we started doing more a couple of years ago is making sure we set up a Facebook event, because Facebook's algorithm changes so often, the way you can communicate with people is very challenging, but you can really get the pulse of an event through the Facebook event setup, and then you can actually communicate with people through a Facebook event, which we actually use to go back later to communicate with people.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah.
So,
Can you come up with that?
I'll just speak loudly. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm obsessed with timelines and checklists and making it better each year. So can you explain to me how your Google Docs compared to Basecamp? I just want to hear about that process.
So the Basecamp is basically like a big file cabinet, or it's a big, it has different pockets to it at different areas. It has to-do lists. So we get everything in to-do lists. You can assign to-dos, you can track the to-dos, and then there's a place where you can put documents. So for instance, our timeline is in a Google Doc with many, many, many tabs depending on where you are in the installation. It's like 20 tabs. And so that timeline is all scheduled out, and it's linked into the Basecamp. Our RSVP list for our VIP tent that we have at every water fire called the Rangers Society, their RSVP list is in the Basecamp. So we always know that, and that's in Google Docs. So every Google Docs are all in the Basecamp, but the Basecamp is, that event. So you always know everything you need for that event is in that base camp. And each event, each waterfront has its own base camp. And everybody has access, the whole team has access to the base camp. So you can communicate, you can have discussions in there. All the marketing materials we do, we have big sponsors, all the banners, all that work is designing banners, all that stuff is also inside base camp. It's all linked to to-dos. It's pretty powerful tool. We do. I think it's probably $100 a month or $79 a month or something like that. For us, it makes a world of difference. The challenge is getting everybody to work in base camp. You know, people, different levels of adoption. People have different comfort levels of technology and adoption. We're working harder and harder and harder to make sure everybody, you know, if it doesn't exist in base camp, it doesn't exist. Type of thing.
There's lots of different products. Trello is another one. There's a bunch out there. If you Google project management programs, they're really awesome tools. So, what role would you say? I saw a lot of data in these presentations. I'm a big data nerd, especially when it comes to tracking outcomes, results, and when you're looking for funding for something like an event, that's a lot of times what a funder is looking at. So what sorts of metrics, measures play a role in your event management process? What are you tracking, and how do you track success for your event?
So we use SurveyMonkey also. At our first Hyannis Open Streets event, we got a bunch of different gift items from different merchants on the street and made a big gift basket, and we told people if they filled out a survey, they would be entered to win this basket, so that was really good. So we got a lot of people who filled out the surveys that day, and then we had a lot of people do SurveyMonkey surveys later. And I have the results of this SurveyMonkey over here, and I also have a couple of other surveys that I did, which was, one was to the merchants on the street to get their feedback, and one was to the different organizations that we invite. So we don't invite outside vendors to the event to sort of honor the vendors that we have on the street already, but we do offer tables for free to any nonprofit community organization that has information that they want to share. So I created a survey for those people just to see how they thought the event went.
So, ticket data, you can do free tickets to things, which I think is really worth doing. It's a bit of an annoyance, but people also kind of get excited about having a ticket and that they know that, you know, things are sort of buttoned up, and it gives them a map and it sends them a reminder. And I've had people contact me to say that they weren't coming to a free event, which was very gracious of them, but you know, but ticket data gives you a lot of information. You get everybody's zip code, at least where they get their bill. When you create a new event in like Eventbrite, even if it's a free event, it asks you if you want to email all the people that you invited to, you know, 10 prior events, and you can kind of select who you want to get your free invite to your next free event. So we do a lot of that, but we also look at transportation data because we have access to that information. You know, generally on a larger scale, police should be able to tell you what kind of impact your event had. And, you know, we also, for us, because our events kind of take over the town, we look at the town tax rolls because it tells you occupancy and meals tax, which generally is a pretty good indication of whether your event brought a lot of people to town and what they did.
So we do things on a lot of different levels, but about 12 years ago we had an economic impact study because we do get public money and we're a big hospitality draw. Now this is the latest I've ever gone to a presentation to say we bring about 1 million people in a year. It's $114 million to the Rhode Island economy. It's generates about a little over $9 million of tax revenue, and it supports 1,294 jobs in the community. So we use economic impact data to get the attention of legislators. That we do get a grant from the state that helps us a little bit. And then, like in 2000, the reason we know that actually is in 2012 there was a dredging study done by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on the rivers that run through downtown Providence, and lo and behold, we were the only actual impact in that study. So we use that study extensively to establish credibility for the numbers I just cited. On a little bit kind of more informal approach, we started this year, really cool, I'm super excited about it. We set up, we put 3 maps, and we put a lot of pins out, and we have a guy who actually owns a map store who was really struggling with his map store, so we said, we can show you, promote your map store at Waterfire. So we got people lining up to put their pins in. Jane put her pin in when she came. We just met today. She told me that story, which made me really happy. So all season long, we've been about 1,000 people at Waterfire put their pins in the map. And so we get some good data from that. We know that like 70% of people come from out of state. So then the final one I'll just share with you is that we have a board member who wants to lost parking lots. He called me yesterday to tell me he's in Florida. He couldn't come to the fundraiser. He apologized about that, but he called me to tell me, it's the best season we've had for a long time, Waterfire season, where our numbers are higher than ever. So we've tracked like license plates and things like that. Parking lots.
So great. That's awesome info. So I have one more question for the full panel, and then we can turn it over to you guys for a few minutes before we wrap up. So I want to bring it back to creativity, the X factor, wow factor, whatever you want to call it. How do you get an event to a point where you are inspiring people when they walk away, where they walk away from some of these events, which, I mean, I'm inspired just looking at the pictures and hearing about them. What does it take to elevate an event to an experience that people will never forget?
Well, I can give you a couple of quick stories, and it's all about who you hire is really important. So an old friend of mine's younger brother, who I've known for a long time, Jonathan Thompson, you probably all know him as JT. Our first time as Open Streets, I said, JT, can you come MC, get his friend Angel, the DJ, and so they did. And we had, I don't have the money, we don't have the money to get like some big thing. So our whole philosophy is you guys that come are the big thing. So we hired JT, and he's been there every time, and he kind of gets people going. He holds the microphone, his friend DJs, he gets people dancing. And there was a writer for the Cape Cod Times, Sarah Lee Perel, and she wrote an article following the first Hyannis Open Streets, and she talked about how she had been in an accident and was told she would never walk again. And she came to Hyannis Open Streets, and she wrote about how she went and saw JT and listened to the music, and she really wanted to dance. And she kept telling herself, oh, I can't do it, I can't do it. And she had a breakthrough, and next thing you know, she was dancing with JT. And every time I read that article, it's on our Facebook page and it's on our website. I get choked up. So, it's about the people. Another cool story is we have pogo sticks out on the Village Green. It's kind of the kids area. And a lot of the kids have never seen a pogo stick. They don't even know what they are. So we have volunteers that kind of show them and help them learn. One kid last fall learned, and he liked it so much he asked for one for Christmas. He showed up at the spring Hyannis Open Streets, and he was pogo sticking while jump roping, no-handed. Then he showed up at the last one, and he was doing backwards pogo, no hands, all these tricks. I don't even know what he was doing. It was fascinating. So it's all about the people making it happen for our event.
I totally agree. It really is all about people, and sometimes in the middle of a all day long, 6 stages of live entertainment, a parade, a lot of hoopla, they're and you're standing there thinking like, okay, nothing bad happened, I mean, that's always my first thought is like, did you not have an incident that because that, you know, there's some risk involved in these kind of events. And so after the no incident, I think the next thought is like, well, you know, even if you just allowed people to sit in the sun for, you know, and eat an ice cream, it really is kind of a gift. And so I think the impact that these events have on people's lives sometimes can just be so simple. But I also feel like inviting people, as you said, to, you know, come and be the event with some moderation is a good thing. And that really is important, is to, you know, sort of to create something where people can and find ways to give them roles to participate.
Find a genius artist who has this great idea. Like burning fires on a flooding through the middle of a river downtown. It's like, if you could do that, that's kind of easy. No, seriously, I think that's a big part of it. Barnaby's a genius who knows how to just inspire people. I think there's two parts of it. We try to do, every water park has a different theme or different kind of structure to it and focus. And we do that, we mix it up to try to make sure we appeal to the local people. The majority of the people come from out of state, and I think they're coming to see the element of waterfire, which is the fires on the river, and if you haven't been, it's the music. People love the music. So that's what draws the big crowds in my estimation, although we do work hard to try to not do the same thing over and over again.
All right, we'll open it up to you guys. We've got 10 minutes left, so we'll spend it all on questions. Yeah, and you'll have to come up and grab the mic and pass it around.
So I'm really curious about your marketing of your events. And thinking of it as sort of the people who are not getting your traditional marketing. You know, we all know social media, press, radio, TV, whatever you're using. But I'm coming from a world of access, and we know there are people who are not getting that marketing. I'm wondering how you're doing that to build your customer base, because I can't imagine you're satisfied with your numbers. I mean, you shouldn't be. You should always be looking for that customer base. So what do you do?
So I'll start with that. We are actually at capacity, so we don't market at all, frankly. We're at beyond the capacity of a park that can accommodate the numbers of people. So we actually designed some interventions to draw people away from the installation itself. And like the star field you saw is actually an intervention to get people to circulate, because otherwise they would stood there all night on the river and experience it. But one thing I do want to talk about is we have an access program, which we're super proud of. We have a boat, because if you've ever been to Providence or been to water parks, Cobblestone Park is totally not accessible. It's terrible. But we don't own it. We can't change it. It's like we operate in a public park. So what we did is we have a pontoon boat that is wheelchair accessible, and it takes. We work with all kinds of work, hospitals.
How do I know about that? How do I find out that you have that access?
You find it clearly on our website. We're super proud this year because we got a new boat, and so we did have a lot of social media and media. We had TV media in Providence. So we worked on that because we're trying to raise money for this product, for that program, which is very, very popular. So it's kind of sometimes a tough challenge to get on it. But so that's an instance where we actually did some active marketing. But we actually, and because we're a mission-free event, frankly, if the crowd is, we're not making much more money. In fact, our public safety costs go up significantly when the crowd gets bigger, because we pay for the police and all the fire safety and everything else. So each water fire, we have probably about $10,000 of public safety costs. And I just want to be absolutely clear too on something. I'm throwing around a lot of big numbers. We are as challenged as every single person up here financially. It's just the numbers are bigger. So our income is, it's just as challenging. We are not rolling in dough. It's a really, really, really difficult thing to do what we do. We're not, our insurance cost alone is over $200,000 a year. So
I don't want to create impression that we're more successful than we are.
We use a lot of social media, and it really works. But, you know, we've had, if you're a nonprofit and you got a lot of moxie, you can go to Clear Channel and ask for a free billboard on the highway, because it really doesn't cost them anything to put your message up there for, I shouldn't speak for them, should I? But, you know, the Cambridge Jazz Festival was able to get free billboards. The Taste of Cambridge, because it was charitable, was able to get free billboards. And the Taste of Cambridge had 3 rain dates one year. And we had to let people know, and, you know, if it's electronic, you can be responsive. So that really is it. But, you know, Provincetown is a destination. I still have, my landscaper friend told me the other day that he didn't know that Pride was happening, and he was upset, and that I'm not doing a good job of telling people who, you know, so I think it's really hard to get everyone through every media. And we should all help each other, because I bet there are people who could help carry the water on our messages and vice versa. So I think partnership helps.
So we do posters and Facebook and Instagram. We don't do Eventbrite, but maybe I should look into that. It's a free event, so I never even gave it a thought. But I'm just looking at my Survey Monkey results from our first event, and it was 49 entries that we got on that. We got a lot handed to us personally, but Facebook was #1, pretty much double everything else. So 32 people heard about us through Facebook, 18 through a poster or a flyer, and 17 through word of mouth, and the rest were other things, an article they read or whatever. But Facebook has been invaluable to us since free.
I'll just say one thing about Facebook. You know, people will, in the way that they like or thumbs up something, say they're coming to your event. So it's a great tool because you get a great reach, but, you know, as you saw with our dumpling event, you know, 35,000 people said they were coming, and that's not really always who shows up.
Don't give the caterer that number.
Yeah, one question for you.
Well, we have been at the art community, going on for 33 years, going for 34 years. Do you have any advice on freshening it up, reinventing it, doing things differently? We definitely see decline in attendees, and so it'd be interesting to get your perspective on how do you keep something alive in 25 years that always different and new when you're pushing people away.
So how do you keep it fresh in an annual event? That's a good question.
Yeah, and we're doing 12 times a year. So we're different. We're towards the attraction, but so we, you know, I think bringing in fresh. We have huge collaborators. So we bring in, like last night at the, was it last night? Yes, last night. It was so much fun. We had.
I just want to give major props because that would not be upright.
We had this new aerialist group that approached us. So it was something we tried, right? We always try to find something like that, and in fact, we
fire and
yeah,
fire.
we're always trying to find something for our fireball to do something different than we did the year before. And we brought the aerialists in, and in fact, we did a trade with them because they're going to use our space tomorrow night for an event that sell tickets to. So that's how we afforded this Cirque du Soleil type of experience, and it was pretty spectacular. So that drew them in, but I think just bringing in artists and working with some fresh people in your community that are, you know, maybe some young people that have some fresh ideas. Having said that, right now, our artist is in his 60s and he's not lacking for any kind of fresh. We got to hold him back.
So we just had the 40th anniversary carnival where, with not a lot of money, we have a lot of pressure to pick the most iconic grand marshal of, you know, to represent. And I think people really loved B. Arthur. She was good, but there hasn't been. We had some suggestions for Stormy Daniels, and we do poll people to find out who they want. But I think polling people really. I mean, we pick our carnival theme, which this year is the Enchanted Forest, based on polling people. So I get like 150 really good ideas from the people. So this year we chose for our 40th anniversary, because we kind of kept getting the suggestion that we have so many wonderful people locally, why don't we honor our own? So we had 40 grand marshals, which required printing 40 sashes. It gave us 40 more people to be in our parade. And it just really sort of changed the vibe, because we also had like 40 evangelists getting their friends involved. And the other thing we did that I thought was really interesting this year that really helped with younger people was we had a couple of maker events, like come and make something for the parade. And we had some arts and crafts supplies and some ideas, but we really done a lot to try to mine other people's creative visions and then give them a space to make it happen.
So we're pretty new, so I haven't really had to think about this too much, but I have been thinking since I was chosen to be on this panel, and I was thinking that we should have those braziers down Main Street when we have Hyannis Open Streets, and maybe we should have some of the floats from Carnival also. So collaboration, like Peter said, I think is something that we should think about when we're trying to freshen things up. I just went to King Richard's Fair last weekend or the weekend before, and I got to thinking, wouldn't it be cool if we got some of that Renaissance element into one of our Hyannis Open Streets? So think about things that you go to that you like, and figure out how you can incorporate little bits and pieces into your event from those things that you like.
Okay, Peter has one more comment.
Yeah, so to your question too, last night, it was the first time, and this seems like such a no-brainer, but last night was the first time we actually used our fire space at our own event. And so I suggest there's probably people here, you probably never used the fire spinner. They do have a lot of excitement. But I think James, that was your recommendation, I think he's spot on. So sometimes thinking about things maybe already you have that you're not using completely, like we did with them, but also they're pretty excited. I'm sure there's plenty of them people.
Great. Well, I want to thank our panelists, Peter, Robin, Jane. Thank you all so much for your great answers and insight. Let's give them a round of applause. I want to thank the Arts Foundation for hosting this awesome event and this panel. It's just a great idea, great panelists all together, and so important because of what the arts do for our community and the economic vitality to really drill down into some of these topics. And then on behalf of the Arts Foundation, I also want to turn around and thank you all for coming. I understand that some people are going over to the West End after, so go hang out and have a few drinks and recap. And thank you again for coming. I appreciate it.